Hello, inner shifters, how you doing? Your host, Sophia here. All right, pull up a chair. Maybe imagine we're in your kitchen with the windows open and a little sunshine streaming in. I want to talk to you about something so humble it's easy to overlook, yet so powerful it could honestly transform how you feel from the inside out. Let's chat about leafy greens. Yes, those vibrant, earthy, often underestimated little leaves that truly earn their spot in the Superfoods Hall of Fame. Now, before your eyes glaze over thinking this is about to turn into a preachy salad monologue, hang tight. This isn't about rabbit food or kale guilt tripping. This is about honoring something deeply beautiful and nourishing, not just for your body, but for your whole way of living. I grew up watching my grandmother in her garden, knelt over rows of collard greens and spinach, her hands in the soil like she was listening for something. And honestly, I think she was. Because she always said, green is life, and she meant it in every way. Those greens were the centerpiece of every meal, whether sautéed, stirred into a stew, or served with a side of storytelling. But more than that, they were a quiet medicine. She didn't call them superfoods. She called them common sense. Fast forward to now, and we finally have the science to back up what she and so many others already knew. Leafy greens are kind of like the multivitamin Mother Nature designed herself. Packed with iron, calcium, fiber, folate, antioxidants, and this deep chlorophyll-rich magic that your cells absolutely love. But I know what you might be thinking. They don't always taste like celebration. They can be bitter. Maybe chewy. Maybe not as Instagram-worthy as a smoothie bowl. But let me tell you something, greens aren't supposed to dazzle you like candy. They ground you. They connect you. They wake up something in you that's ancient and wise and strong. I remember this guy named Ben I met at a wellness retreat. Corporate job, always on the go, all about protein shakes and pre-workout boosters. But somewhere along the way, he'd gotten sluggish. Just low energy, foggy brain, constant crashes. During our food workshop, someone asked when was the last time he had something dark and leafy. He laughed and said, "Does lettuce on a burger count?" But he took that as a challenge. Over the next few weeks, he started adding a handful of spinach to his morning eggs, swapped fries for garlicky kale once a week. Nothing dramatic. But slowly, the light came back to his eyes. He said it was like his body had been running on fumes, and greens were the thing that recharged him. Not a miracle, just minerals. Just nourishment. But real. Because that's what greens do, they restore. They cleanse. They fortify. They whisper to your liver, "Hey, I've got you." They fuel your blood with iron and help your gut with fibers. And maybe most powerfully, they remind you that your health doesn't always need to come in a package or a pill. Sometimes it grows in a garden, or in a bag of spinach from the corner store. I used to think eating healthy had to be elaborate or expensive. Smoothies with 17 ingredients, powders from across the world. But the more I learn, the more I come back to the basics. To arugula, to collard, to Swiss chard with those stunning rainbow stems. They're not fancy, but they're enough. There's this woman I admire, Alina, who turned her health around not with trends, but with greens. She was recovering from burnout, dealing with inflammation, and overwhelmed by all the advice out there. She said one day she just stopped and asked herself, what if I focused on adding instead of restricting? So she started adding greens. Do rice, do soup, do pasta. Within months, she said her cravings changed. Her skin changed. Her mood changed. And the best part, she said she finally felt like she was nourishing herself, not punishing herself. Because let's talk about that too. So often we approach food with guilt, with shoulds, with restriction. But leafy greens, they don't carry that energy. They're not about shame or deprivation. They are about abundance, about filling up on what actually fuels you, about choosing to treat yourself like someone worth feeding well. And yes, there are so many kinds. Spinach with its buttery softness and iron-rich bite. Kale, the hearty friend that holds up in soups and salads. Romaine, light and crisp. Beet greens, mustard greens, dandelion greens, they've all got their own flavor, their own contribution. Find one that speaks to you. That feels like something you'd want to invite onto your plate, not force onto it. I had a friend who said she could never eat greens because they made her gag. But one day she had this sautéed collard dish with coconut milk and garlic, and I swear I saw a tear roll down her cheek. She said, "I didn't know they could taste like comfort." And that's the thing, greens can be soothing. They can be love. It's all in how you prepare them. Think warming spices. A splash of lemon. A drizzle of olive oil. Let them dance a little before you decide they're not for you. And let's be real, some days it's a pile of fresh spinach. Some days it's a green juice grabbed on the run. And some days it's frozen chopped kale stirred into soup from a can. It all counts. There's no gold star for eating perfectly. The win is in the intention. The win is in choosing something that gives your body a deep exhale. What I love most about leafy greens is that they've been with us for generations. Long before diet culture, before fad foods, before we overcomplicated nourishment. They're the food of grandmothers and farmers and monks. They're tied to traditions of healing across cultures. From African stews to Asian stir-fries, Middle Eastern herb salads to Latin American dishes with verdolagas, greens show up everywhere. Rooted, essential, generous. So if you're ever feeling tired, out of sync, disconnected from your body, start with greens. Not as a rule, not as a fix, just as a kindness. Add them to something you already love. Taste them with curiosity. Let your body respond. And if you're someone who's healing physically, emotionally, spiritually, leafy greens are a beautiful companion. They don't demand. They don't shout. They just show up, nutrient-dense and quietly powerful, offering what they've always offered, life. So I hope you fall in love with them in your own way. Maybe through a late-night dinner that surprises you. Maybe through the way your skin glows a week later. Maybe because they remind you of someone you love. Or maybe, just maybe, because you finally decided you were worth feeding well. Let's talk about berries. And not in a nutritional chart kind of way, but like we're out walking through a farmer's market, sunlight on our shoulders, hands stained with juice from a sample we just couldn't resist. Because berries aren't just food, they're joy. They're color and sweetness and life packed into the tiniest, most powerful bite. You know what I love about berries? They don't need to try hard. No fancy prep. No complicated recipes. They show up bright, bold, and bursting with everything your body and soul didn't know it was craving. Strawberries, blueberries, raspberries, blackberries, they've all got that quiet confidence that I know who I am energy. And they belong on every plate that's trying to feel more alive. I once knew a woman named Jessa, mid-40s, juggling 1,000 things: kids, work, aging parents. She told me she used to eat whatever was fast and easy, usually processed stuff on the go. But her body started pushing back fatigue, dull skin, headaches. So one day she made a small promise to herself: eat something beautiful every day. And you know what that turned into? A handful of berries with breakfast. That was it. That tiny splash of color reminded her of her commitment, and the ripple effect was huge. Her meals got fresher. Her energy picked up. Her mood lifted. She started feeling like herself again. All because of those little antioxidant-packed messengers of joy. Berries have this almost magical quality. They're rich in vitamins, low in calories, high in fiber, and loaded with antioxidants, those little compounds that fight off cell damage and inflammation. But beyond the science, they just make you feel good. Like the way a blueberry bursts on your tongue, tart and sweet all at once. Or how a raspberry dissolves almost instantly, leaving this bright, tangy echo behind. I remember picking blackberries as a kid, arms scratched, fingers purple, heart completely full. There's something about reaching for something growing wild and good for you that rewires your connection to food. It's not just fuel. It's an experience. And you don't have to hunt for hand-picked magic either. Frozen berries just as powerful. They're picked at peak ripeness and often retain more nutrients than the fresh ones sitting on the grocery shelf too long. Throw them in oatmeal, blend them into smoothies, snack on them straight from the freezer like sweet little icicles. However you have them, they show up. There's this man I met in a cooking class, Lewis. He had type 2 diabetes and was looking to shift his diet without feeling like he was missing out. Berries became his secret weapon. Low on the glycemic index, full of fiber and flavor, they helped him feel like he was still enjoying life. He said they're like dessert with a PhD. I still smile every time I remember that. What's also beautiful about berries is their color, the reds, purples, blues. That vibrancy comes from compounds called anthocyanins, and your body loves those. They're linked to better heart health, sharper cognitive function, and lower inflammation. It's like eating nature's own medicine cabinet, except it tastes like a treat. So if you've been feeling sluggish or disconnected from your body or just hungry for something real, add a handful of berries to your day. Not as a diet rule, not as a performance goal, just as a gift. A reminder that food can be kind, healing, joyful. Because superfoods aren't just about what's in them. They're about how they make you feel. Berries, with all their smallness, carry big energy. They remind you to slow down, to savor, to reach for something sweet that also loves you back. Let's turn the spotlight on nuts and seeds. And not with a lecture, but like we're catching up after a long day and sharing a bowl of trail mix while the sun sets and the conversation flows. Because these tiny treasures, they've got big stories to tell. You know what amazes me? The fact that something so small, a walnut, a sunflower seed, a handful of chia, can hold so much life inside. They're not just crunchy snacks or garnish for smoothies. They're ancient, mighty, and nourishing on a level that feels both primal and deeply comforting. When you eat nuts and seeds, you're literally consuming potential. Each one carries the ability to grow into something so much bigger than itself. And in a way, doesn't that feel like us? I met someone once named Lanny, one of those people who lights up a room, but you can tell they've weathered some storms. She told me that during a rough patch in her life, post-divorce, burnout, the whole identity unraveling, she lost her appetite for a while. Big meals overwhelmed her. A comfort food felt heavy. But what helped her ease back into herself? Snacking on almonds. Just a few at a time over tea, like something inside her whispered, "We're not done nurturing you yet." Those almonds were more than protein. They were a kind of slow return. A quiet rebuild. That's the thing with nuts and seeds, they're dense. Not just in nutrients, but in possibility. full of healthy fats, protein, fiber, minerals like magnesium and zinc, and plant-based compounds that your cells absolutely devour. And they work in partnership with your body, whispering, "Let's keep going." You've got fuel. I know some people get nervous around the idea of fats. For so long, we were told to fear them. But the fats in nuts and seeds, they're helpers. They support brain function, heart health, hormone regulation, things your body depends on to feel steady and energized. I once met a high school teacher named Rob who started adding ground flax to his morning oatmeal because his doctor recommended more omega-3s. He thought it would be flavorless, pointless, but after a few weeks, he told me his mind felt sharper in class. Like someone turned up the contrast on my thinking, he said. Food doing what it does best, quietly lifting you from the inside. And can we take a second to marvel at the diversity? Almonds, cashews, pistachios, pecans, sunflower seeds, pumpkin seeds, sesame, chia, hemp, flax. There's a whole cast of characters here. Each with its own benefits, its own texture, its own story. You can toast them, soak them, blend them, scatter them over bowls like confetti. They are flexible, adaptable, just like you. My friend Simone swears by her calm, little ritual she came up with after experiencing anxiety flare-ups. She mixes tahini with a bit of honey, stirs in a pinch of salt, and eats it slowly with a teaspoon when life feels too loud. She says it helps her breathe again. Is it the sesame's calcium, the fat that steadies blood sugar, or maybe just the act of slowing down and choosing to feed herself with care? Probably all of it. That's the thing about food, it nourishes in ways we can't always quantify. And yes, portion matters. Nuts and seeds are potent, so they don't need to be eaten by the fistful. But they're not something to fear. They're something to respect. To enjoy. To let become part of your rhythm, sprinkled on salads, blended into smoothies, tossed into stir-fries, or savored by the handful during a busy afternoon. I knew a woman who kept little jars of different seeds on her kitchen counter, each one labeled not with the name but with a feeling. Focus, flow, calm, joy. Oh, she said it reminded her that she had choices. That food could be part of her mood toolkit. That nourishment wasn't only in calories, it was in connection. I've never forgotten that. So the next time you're preparing a meal or even just reaching for a snack, ask yourself, could something small add something meaningful? Maybe it's a sprinkle of pumpkin seeds. Maybe it's a tablespoon of almond butter. Maybe it's a sesame-topped rice bowl. Whatever it is, let it feel intentional. Like a secret handshake between you and your well-being. Because superfoods aren't about following rules. They're about returning to what your body already knows. That healing can be tiny. That strength doesn't always shout. That sometimes the smallest seeds are the ones that grow the biggest change. You know, it's kind of wild how much power lives in the way we feed ourselves. I'm not talking about strict plans or cutting joy out of food. I'm talking about a diet that feels like love. One that energizes you in the morning, keeps you steady in the afternoon, and doesn't crash you into the evening wondering where all your strength went. A friend of mine, Tomas, once told me he thought eating healthy meant giving up everything he loved. But after dealing with constant fatigue, he slowly started swapping takeout for home-cooked meals, added color to his plate, drank more water, and one day he just felt good. No crash, no fog, just clear, calm energy. I didn't know food could care about me back, he said. Because when you nourish your body with intention, real, whole foods, leafy greens, bright berries, warm grains, you start to notice the difference. You sleep better. Your mind sharpens. Your mood gets lighter. It's not magic, it's you, supported by what you're giving yourself. A good diet isn't punishment. It's permission to feel your best, to show up fully. and to love yourself in the simplest, most delicious way possible. You deserve that. Truly. I thank you so much for listening to this podcast. Remember to like, follow, subscribe, and do all those lovely things you wonderful people do. I'll see you next time.